Richard Feynman was a famous American theoretical physicist who was known for his work in quantum mechanics and also for winning the Nobel Prize in 1965 in physics for quantum electrodynamics. But he's also known for pioneering the field of quantum computing, and I think he's also credited with the concept of nanotechnology, starting that whole thing. Now, he became famous during his lifetime, not only for winning the Nobel Prize, but also because he popularized physics through a series of public lectures, and he wrote several books too. But the reason I'm going to talk about some work from one of his stories is, reading through his work, he reminds me a lot of my father. My father worked for NASA, for Goddard Space Flight Center, during the whole Apollo mission time. And he just seemed like he's very similar in the way he goes about things as Feynman. And he really loved his work. So, but the other thing about Richard Feynman is that I thought was important to highlight was he kind of brings out this idea of how important it is, or how important play is in the role of discovery. And also, he gets at, I think, what ultimately when we're best able to contribute to others, it's when we're being our authentic selves, not trying to fill some role. So, during World War II, Feynman worked at Los Alamos Laboratory, and while he was there, his wife was dying of cancer, and she passed before he finished up there. But after World War II, he went to work at Cornell University as a physics professor for the first time. So this story picks up when he's getting this fresh start at Cornell. So I'll go ahead and start. Anyway, I began to teach the course in mathematical methods in physics, and I think I also taught another course, electricity and magnetism perhaps. I also intended to do research. Before the war, while I was getting my degree, I had many ideas. I had invented new methods for quantum mechanics with path integrals, and I had a lot of stuff I wanted to do. At Cornell, I'd work on preparing my courses, and I'd go over to the library a lot and read through Arabian Nights and ogle the girls that would go by. But when it came time to do some research, I couldn't get to work. I was a little tired. I wasn't interested. I couldn't do research. This went on for what I felt like was a few years, but when I go back and calculate the timing, it couldn't have been that long. Perhaps nowadays I wouldn't think it was such a long time, but then it went on for what seemed like a very long time. I simply couldn't get started on any problem. I remember writing one or two sentences on some problem in gamma rays, and then I couldn't go any further. I was convinced that from the war and everything else, the death of my wife, I had simply burned myself out. I now understand it much better. First of all, a young man doesn't realize how much time it takes to prepare good lectures, for the first time especially, and to give the lectures and make up exam problems, ones that are sensible. I was giving good courses, the kind of courses I put a lot of thought into. But what I didn't realize was that's a lot of work. So here I was, burned out, reading the Arabian Nights and feeling depressed about myself. So during this period, I would get offers from different places, universities and industry with salaries higher than my own. And each time I got something like that, I would get a little more depressed. I would say to myself, look, they're giving me these wonderful offers, but they don't realize I'm burned out. They expect me to accomplish something, and I can't accomplish anything. I have no ideas. So finally, there came a time, or they came in the mail, an invitation from the Institute for Advanced Study. Einstein, von Neumann, Bill, all these great minds, they write to me and invite me to be a professor there. And not just a regular professor, somehow they knew about my feelings about the Institute, about how it's too theoretical, how there's not enough real activity and challenge. So they write, we appreciate that you have a considerable interest in experiments and in teaching. So we've made special arrangements to create a special type of professorship, if you wish. Half professor at Princeton University and half at the Institute. Institute for Advanced Study, special exception, a position better than Einstein even? It was ideal, it was perfect, it was absurd. It was absurd. The other offers had made me feel worse up to a point. They were expecting me to accomplish something. But this offer was so ridiculous, so impossible for me to ever live up to, so ridiculously out of proportion, the other ones were just mistakes. This was an absurdity. I laughed at it while I was shaving, thinking about it. And then I thought to myself, you know, what they think of you is so fantastic, it's impossible to live up to. You have no responsibility to live up to it. It was a brilliant idea. You have no responsibility to live up to what other people think you ought to accomplish. I have no responsibility to be like they expect me to be. It's their mistake, not my failing. So it wasn't a failure on my part that the Institute for Advanced Study expected me to be that good. It was impossible. It was clearly a mistake. And the moment I appreciated the possibility that they might be wrong, I realized that it was also true of all the other places, including my own university. I am what I am, and if they expect me to be good and they're offering me some money to do it, it's their hard luck. Then within the day, by some strange miracle, perhaps he overheard me talking about it, or maybe he just understood me. Bob Wilson, who was the head of the laboratory there at Cornell, called me in to see him. He said in a serious tone, "Feynman, you're teaching your classes well, you're doing a good job, and we're very satisfied. Any other expectations we might have are a matter of luck. When we hire a professor, we are taking all the risks. If it comes out good, all right. If it doesn't, too bad. But you shouldn't worry about what you are doing or not doing." He said it much better than that, and it released me from the feeling of guilt. Then I had another thought. Physics disgusts me a little now, but I used to enjoy doing physics. Why did I enjoy it? I used to play with it. I used to do whatever I felt like doing, and I didn't have to do whether it was important for the development of nuclear physics, but whether it was interesting and amusing for me to play with. When I was in high school, I'd see water running out of a faucet growing narrower, and I'd wonder if I could figure out what determines that curve. I found it was rather easy to do. I didn't have to do it. It wasn't important for the future of science. Somebody else had already done it. That didn't make any difference. I'd invent things and play with things for my own entertainment. So I got this new attitude. Now that I am burned out and I'll never accomplish anything, I've got this nice position at the university teaching classes, which I rather enjoy. And just like I read Arabian Nights for pleasure, I'm going to play with physics whenever I want to, without worrying about any importance whatsoever. Within a week, I was in the cafeteria, and some guy fooling around throws a plate in the air. And as the plate went up, I saw it wobble, and I noticed the red medallion of Cornell going around. It was pretty obvious to me that the medallion went around faster than the wobbling. I had nothing to do, so I started to figure out the motion of the rotating plate. I discovered that when the angle is very slight, the medallion rotates twice as fast as the wobble rate, 2 to 1. It came out of a complicated equation. Then I thought, is there some way I can see in a more fundamental way, by looking at the forces of the dynamics, why it's 2 to 1? I don't remember how I did it, but ultimately I worked out what the motion of the mass particles is and how all the accelerations balance to make it come out 2 to 1. I still remember going to my friend Hans Bethe and saying, "Hey Hans, I noticed something interesting. Here the plate goes around so, and the reason it's 2 to 1 is," and I showed him the accelerations. He says, "Feynman, that's pretty interesting, but what's the importance of it? Why are you doing it?" "Ha," I said, "there's no importance whatsoever. I'm just doing it for the fun of it." His reaction didn't discourage me. I had made up my mind I was going to enjoy physics and do whatever I liked. I went on to work out equations of wobbles. Then I thought about how electron orbits start to move in relativity. Then there's the Dirac equation in electrodynamics, and then quantum electrodynamics. And before I knew it, it was a very short time, I was playing, working really, on the same old problem that I love so much, that I had stopped working on when I went to Los Alamos. my thesis type problems, all those old-fashioned wonderful things. It was effortless. It was easy to play with these things. It was like uncorking a bottle. Everything just flowed out effortlessly. I almost tried to resist it. There was no importance to what I was doing, but ultimately there was. The diagrams and the whole business that I got the Nobel Prize for came out of my piddling around with that wobbling plate. Mr. Toastmaster.